Hi, I'm Ben, and today I'm going to talk to you about why I can no longer stay silent on what's happening in the world today, why I'm a Bitcoin nobody, and what my journey was to get into Bitcoin and how I arrived there. So to start off, I stumbled upon Bitcoin, or more specifically stumbled upon our monetary system and how it works kind of by accident. One day I just came home from work and I was perusing Facebook, probably should have been with the family or something, and an advertisement had found me, probably because of something I had Googled, and it was a guy wanting to sell me a book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? Now, I had Googled probably something to the effect of how have the Rockefellers kept their wealth for so many generations, which has been a particular question that I have had over the years. I was just curious, how, if I ever got rich, which I'm certainly not, how would you preserve that wealth in your family? So kind of unrelated to the whole U.S. monetary policy or world monetary policy, but it started me down a rabbit hole, down a deep path, a rabbit hole from which I have not emerged and probably never will emerge. It was a huge path of learning. I'll show you the book. So I bought this book. The guy wanted me to buy it. What Would the Rockefellers Do? I bought it for like $2, just to cover shipping, I guess. It's the author is Garrett B. Gunderson. It had a lot of really good stuff in it, and stuff I've kind of listened to. Not all of it. I guess I didn't really hire his company to do anything for me. It seemed like it was for really high net worth individuals, but I learned a ton in this book. This book is where I learned terms like Keynesian economics and Austrian economics. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I took 2 econ courses, macro and microeconomics in college, and I don't remember ever hearing those terms, and I had not been taught at all kind of how the real system works, maybe some touches on it. In fact, if I was to go back, I don't know if my professors knew how the real economy works, why the money works the way it does. And to a regular person, including myself, before I stumbled on this topics were untouchable to me. I'm just a regular Joe. I work in the oil field, in the oil and gas industry. I own my own business on the side with my family. We work hard. It's not, stuff that shouldn't usually concern us, and yet it should concern everybody. It should concern every human being on the planet, not just in the United States, but on the planet. I'll try to not make this too long as to why, but it started me down the rabbit hole. And to be short, Keynesian economics is the world in which we live. And Austrian economics is, put simply, is economics that makes sense. That, you don't print money. Money preserves its wealth or its value over time, thus making saving money a valuable and desirable thing to do, unlike today's day and age. This book, What Would the Rockefellers Do, led me into, it referenced other books. So it referenced one book called How Privatized Banking Really Works, and these are by 2 authors, Carlos Lara and Robert P. Murphy. I think Robert is an economist, and Carlos Lara is kind of in the banking industry, something like that, if I remember right. It's been quite a while since I got into this stuff. By the way, this all started to happen, we're in February of 2022. This started to happen with me, going down this rabbit hole, I think in October, when I read my journal last October of 2020, or 2019, so right before COVID and all that hit. So I started going down this rabbit hole of reading all these books. This book, along with How Privatized Banking Really Works, that is the full title, led me down to a couple other books called Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, and Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, also by Nelson Nash, who just passed away, I think, right around 2018, 2019, if I remember right. These books, the ones with Nelson Nash and What Would the Rockefellers Do, they teach the value of what whole life insurance is versus your regular term life insurance. And I know, and I went down that rabbit hole quite a bit. I actually bought whole life insurance because of it, and I finally felt like I understood it. Before that, I had just listened to Dave Ramsey and on term life insurance and this, that, and the other. And I realized, one day I remember I was driving home from work thinking about this, kind of in a quandary, and I finally said, Ben, I give you permission to disagree with Dave Ramsey, and quite honestly, I agree probably with 90% or more of what Dave Ramsey teaches. But on this one thing, I did my research. I actually read books, which by the way is becoming a lost art this day and age. I read these books and I came to the conclusion that, hey, I saw the merits of whole life insurance. And these books reference more books that kind of, and I went and bought some whole life, kind of got that buttoned up for me and my family. And then Nelson Nash, he referenced more books, and there's another one. This is amongst some others. I must have got the big print versions on a couple of these books. They must have been the cheaper ones on Amazon. So what? This one's by Murray Rothbard, who's got quite a history of in Austrian economics in that world. And I've read this amongst others. And this one, What Has the Government Done to Our Money, is really eye-opening. And, it's maybe someday I'll share my reading list on everything that I've read up to this point. And I'll share quite a bit today. But Murray Rothbard, his writings further opened my eyes as to what exactly is happening with the U.S. monetary system, and thus the world monetary system, because everybody really is on the dollar or respects the dollar. When I was reading these books in the middle of all that, it must have been probably January or February of 2020. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he said the term Austrian economics. And I stopped him right then and I said, Dad, where did you hear that term Austrian economics? People don't know to say that unless you've read about it. If someone comes up to you on the street and says the term Austrian economics or even Keynesian economics, you have to stop in your tracks. That person has went out and probably learned that kind of stuff on their own or understands it. It represents kind of the next level of maybe that person's understanding. And so anyway, I asked Dad, where did you read that book? And he said, I'm reading this book on Bitcoin called The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. And at the time, I didn't own the book and didn't realize its full value, so I kind of waited a little bit. I convinced our local librarian, I live in a small town, I convinced her to buy it for the library. And as soon as it came in, I was reading the book. And I remember right around reading that book and this, the Bitcoin Standard, among other books, I would stay up late at night after work reading. We'd put the kids down to bed and I would just be immersed in this because it all finally started to make sense to me. How the world is working, why sometimes it feels like you can't get ahead. Why it almost feels like the system is rigged against you. And that does not replace sound principles like saving your money and hard work and effort. That doesn't replace that. But there's another component out there, a huge component, that explains the world in which we live and the why, and is the basic or the basis upon which pretty much everything that happens in this world, globally and politically. And yeah, it comes down to the money. And Saifedean's book, about, I'd say the first 2/3 of it, it doesn't even really mention Bitcoin at all. It gives a history of what money is, how it's been used, and then how it fails in time. And the big thing that has happened is that money fails because people can print it or create it, at infinitum and with very little to no effort. This day and age, it's a keystroke on a computer. And maybe I'll have to make another video so I don't get to detract too much for how I got into this. As I've continued reading, it's like a rabbit hole I have not been able to come out of. I understand why the U.S. forces itself throughout the world and engages with other countries that seem to have nothing to do with us. And it really does come back down to the money and how the U.S. Protects the dollar. Now, is that to say that that is all bad to protect our interests as a country? I would say no, but at the expense of what is the answer to that question? And I am still learning a ton of stuff, and most of it is very surprising, things that I never kind of really considered before, but finally explain a lot. And as I've read more and more, I think my eyes of understanding have opened up. So one last book that I'm currently reading right now is, it just came out by Saifedean Ammous, another one. It's called the Fiat Standard. So you got the Bitcoin Standard and you got the Fiat Standard. For those that don't know, fiat, once you get into this world, you're going to hear the term fiat. Fiat, I mean, simply put, is fake, fake money, but by definition, it's by decree. Something exists by decree. So the US dollar exists by decree. It doesn't exist naturally, like gold would. And so gold, is found, in mind, and it exists by the laws of nature, by the laws of physics. And, it's hard to alter or can't be altered. You can't just print more gold. It's very difficult to print, in the sense that you have to mine it versus, a money printer or a keystroke on a computer. So fiat, it can be simplified into fake money or money that exists by decree. So the big takeaway with Bitcoin with me, which was it can't be printed. I had to understand what Bitcoin was before I could get into it. And I was very tentative to get into it. And I've bought Bitcoin, like they call it dollar cost averaging. You just buy a little every week or every paycheck, or, just kind of on a consistent basis, because it is so volatile. That's kind of the price you pay for owning it. But once you understand what Bitcoin is, I promise you, anybody that invests even 10 hours into Bitcoin will be convinced that, you should get your money out of fiat currencies and into hard money like Bitcoin or even gold. But I like Bitcoin personally more than anything else. Bitcoin is, to be very brief, Bitcoin has a hard cap of 21 million Bitcoin or Bitcoins, meaning once the program, which is just a simple software, computer program running its program, once it reaches 21 million, there will never be more Bitcoin issued. And that'll happen, I think, in the year 2134, 2140, somewhere around there is when that's slated to happen, well after this life for me. But so yeah, Bitcoin does have an inflation right now, but guess what? It's an inflation rate that I know. It's not, I don't even have to predict. I know it. It's built into the code of Bitcoin. Bitcoin also is hard to replicate. There's so many miners, Bitcoin miners throughout the globe. It protects the Bitcoin program, to put it simply. It makes it very hard to hack. I put that in quotes because Bitcoin's never been hacked. Not to say that it's impossible, I guess, but if I was to pick hacking Bitcoin or trying to forge a dollar, I'd probably go for the dollar just because it'd probably be easier. But the network of Bitcoin obviously gives it its strength. When you buy Bitcoin, you're actually buying into that network. And then the way you store Bitcoin, there's many ways to store it. But I I like Bitcoin and love Bitcoin because it's not controlled by any third party. You know, when you hear the word decentralized, what that means is Bitcoin is decentralized and fiat currencies are centralized. Centralized meaning there is a central authority that controls it. Who is the central authority that controls the dollar? It's called the Federal Reserve of the United States. There is nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, and there are no reserves. The Federal Reserve controls the printing of our money and also controls the interest rates. That is a massive, massive privilege, one that no human or group of humans should ever have. Why? Because the temptation to take ultimate control is too much for people to handle, for the human race to handle. And why do I say that? Look at history. How many currencies have failed? Well, every currency that has ever been has failed except gold. And yes, Bitcoin is very young. Bitcoin is roughly 13 years old. So due to the small age of Bitcoin, yeah, there's maybe some room for concern there. But when you look at the properties of it, everything about Bitcoin beats gold. You know, right now, people are sending donations to Ukraine in Bitcoin. Now, why is that? Why aren't they sending gold? Well, gold has a physicality problem. To take it to Ukraine would be very dangerous and very expensive. Bitcoin can be sent at the speed of light, virtually for free, to anybody in Ukraine without one government's permission. Think about that. Now you might think, well, I've never had that problem, and in the US we typically don't. Perhaps the day is coming. If you look at what's happening in Canada with the Prime Minister shutting off people's bank accounts in Canada, it could happen here. Why? Because it could. It literally could happen here. All it takes is for some central authority to shut off our bank accounts. If you've ever had trouble moving money around, you will know what I'm talking about. I have, I've been a good saver. I've invested. I've had some decent amounts of money that I've had to move around. And it takes sometimes a week or two to move money around. We're talking on electronic rails this day and age. And this bank has to talk to that bank. There's got to be permissions. You got to wait for it to settle. One could argue there are many central authorities in the banks today because you have to go through so many banks. And they do what's KYC, which is Know Your Customers, what that stands for, and AMLs, anti-money laundering. They have to do that because there are laws in place where they have to basically know who you are. They're going to ask for your social security number, and they're going to say, okay, Ben sent this much money to this place, or received this much money, and it's all for tracking purposes. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is, well, if you're a criminal, I would not use Bitcoin. I would stick to cash. Because Bitcoin can be tracked, but the Bitcoin network itself is not only secure, but it also is anonymous. It doesn't require, the network itself, the program itself, does not need to know who you are or what you're going to do with the money. When I've sent money off to exchanges, I'll tell my bank, hey, wire this money to this exchange, and they'll be like, I actually started kind of cussing at them because the bank called me and they said, well, what's this for? And I said, none of your dang business. And they're like, well, sir, we're sorry, but we are going to get questions about this. And it wasn't like it was, one, that much money, but two, those guys, they were legit scared. And I was honest. I said, hey, I'm going to buy crypto with it. Kept it as brief as possible. But having just the fact that even the people down at my local bank could stop me from basically participating in commerce is at the height of frustration, to say the least, to me. And once you experience that a few times, and then there's this other thing called Bitcoin out there, there's no comparison, and it just makes for more frustration, to be honest, when you got to deal with the system, but that's currently the world we live in. Now, and I know there's other cryptos like ETH and Cardano, and I mean, there's a lot of others out there. They have their use cases. Some of them are pretty unclear to me. Bitcoin is the only one that is decentralized. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. You know, Satoshi Nakamoto, the person or persons that he, she, they were, has stepped off the screen and are no longer a part of Bitcoin. They've long left and let the program run the way it was designed or the way it was programmed to run. So Bitcoin is its own advertisement. And maybe you are taking a big risk in it, but when you understand that your dollars are melting away because of inflation, then you wonder, what do I do with my money? Because if you're kind of a regular American like me, you don't have a whole lot of money, even if you are a good saver. You know, like I said, I got a business, a couple businesses actually, and a full-time job, which I desperately need. You know, I would not work there if I did not need my job, trust me. But when you realize what's happening to the money, you wonder, what do I do with it? So yeah, I bought some gold, but I pay $200 a year to store it in some vault. You know, I've never put my hands on it. It's just not the same, you know, and I can't just like buy and sell it, you know, like that. Bitcoin, you can. Bitcoin, I can send across the globe, and as soon as you move Bitcoin around the first time and you're like, whoa, it's there, it's done. You're like, wow, that was fast. You know, like when you get your paycheck, usually it'll say pending, or at least on my bank account it does. It says pending, you know, for a day or two. You know, like, what is that? You know, where's the money? You know, like, yeah, I don't know what's happening with it. You know, surely somebody's making money off it in the interim, you know. And Bitcoin, there's none of that. There's none of that, you know. Yeah, Bitcoin, it can take an hour or two to settle. And they're working on that. It's, you know, it actually has been solved. It's called the Lightning Network. I haven't personally used it yet. I haven't needed to. But Bitcoin, I mean, within a couple hours, you're fully settled. Well, what's happening in the meantime? Like, kind of like the bank, if it's pending. Well, on Bitcoin, I know what's happening. It's being verified by the Bitcoin miners on the network. You know, one miner sees it, then another miner sees it, and another, you know, you get enough miners to see it, it gets, you know, it's legitimized, so to speak, onto the Bitcoin network and becomes part of the network and is recorded on the blockchain. And it's done. The transaction's finalized. And you can do that to anybody across the world without permission in any amount. And I mean, it could be a penny worth of Bitcoin, or it could be billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. The network doesn't care, meaning the program doesn't care. Which leads into my final thoughts. Why do I call myself a Bitcoin nobody? Well, you know, like I said, I work in the oil field. I listen to podcasts. I listen, not watch, listen to YouTube basically all day long now, you know, and I have been since, you know, about October of 2019. You know, and what a great blessing, what a great opportunity I have, you know, and, you know, all those other years at work, you know, were maybe semi-wasted, you know, going around in my work truck, listening to music or whatnot. You know, now it's like almost like I get paid to learn while I'm at work, you know, and anybody could, at least at my job, you know, I mean, they don't care what I listen to, you know. So, and now it's called orange peeling, you know, Pilling, orange peeling people, you know, I guess Bitcoin's orange, so you're orange peeling them. I prefer like peeling an orange because I like to think of it as you're peeling back layers of ignorance and expanding the frontiers of knowledge. Anyway, so as I'm listening to these Bitcoin podcasts, and you know, there's a lot of great ones out there. Again, another show, I could go through everybody I listen to. There's some great content out there. And a lot of times these people are interviewing, or I'd say almost most of the time, they're interviewing people who, they were smart people. They got into Bitcoin really early, you know, 10 years, you know, I want to say 10 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, if you even look at the price of Bitcoin 4, 5, 6 years ago, the lows back then, you know, where these people could have got in at, you know, they're probably doing pretty well for themselves, especially if they understood what Bitcoin was at the time. And So they have this era to me, and it could be my own ignorance, that they are financially independent, you know, because either because of Bitcoin or because these dudes, and there are a lot, or dudettes, there are a lot of them, you know, they are go-getters. You know, these people, they're not what I would call the normal person. I would be the normal person. These guys are go-getters. So if Bitcoin didn't make them rich or financially independent, something else did. So they have that kind of era about them. And I remember I would think about these guys listening, and I'm like, man, these guys, they're awesome. You know, I'm just a nobody, you know. And then I thought, well, I'm a Bitcoin nobody. And that's kind of where that name comes from. That's why I'm a Bitcoin nobody. I feel kind of like that. I'm in awe of these people. You know, they're big names out there, like Michael Saylor, who has like something like 125,000 Bitcoin. You know, he gets it. He went in all in I think March or April of 2020. You know, I would like to say I probably bought into Bitcoin before Michael Saylor did, but I was so tentative. You know, I just bought in a little bit. And then as time went on, I started to understand it more and more, and I started to move Bitcoin around so I make sure I didn't lose it, you know. And then within probably, I'd say 4 to 8 months of like my initial thing, you know, I started to be like, I gotta, you know, talk to my wife, we gotta move all of our asset or all of our cash that's just floating around into Bitcoin. And yeah, it's volatile, but we could get rich off it, but at least I know it's volatile, and that's what I'm choosing. And I know it's not controlled by any one individual. And I know, yes, it could make me rich, you know, in 5-10 years. I don't know, you know, depends on what the price goes to and what the inflation is doing. I mean, there's a lot, but I get to choose. I get to choose. You know, I'm choosing Bitcoin, you know, and there's a whole nother world out there, you know, with it, you can get interest on your Bitcoin and other crypto for that matter, but I get to choose. I get to choose that, hey, I'm opting into this. Yes, I know it's very volatile, and you know, maybe it could go to zero. I really doubt that, because I don't think I would let it go to zero. I'd buy it all up before it did. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. Let's see. What else? It's something that is controlled by no one, yet everyone gets to benefit from it. And its emission schedule or the amount that it's printed is put out at a known rate. It's all in the code. No, I have not looked at the code of Bitcoin. I'll be honest. I have just listened to hundreds, possibly thousands of hours by now of many podcasts, Bitcoiners. I've read many books now on Bitcoin. So as a whole, I'm trusting all those people that they're telling the truth, and that, you know, they say they've got 90+% of their money in Bitcoin. You know, I'm trusting that, you know, so I'm trusting the network. You can call me stupid for that, but if I looked at the code, I probably wouldn't know what I was looking at, you know. And besides that, why would people invest billions and billions of dollars into the Bitcoin mining, you know, and you see all these pictures everywhere of Bitcoin miners, you know, and all of that strengthens the network. So that's what I'm buying into. It's the pristine asset. That's kind of a word I hear about Bitcoin. You know, it's the one pristine asset that's out there. So I'm a Bitcoin nobody, but guess what? Maybe you are too. Bitcoin is no respecter of persons. Now, the people who control our dollars are respecters of persons. Just think about that. They are respecters of persons. Someone else is getting it before you do when they print the money. You don't get it all. If you took all the money they printed in the last 2.5 years, I think it would be enough to give every American, I think, $40,000. I, for one, never got that much money from the government. And what purpose would it serve if we all got that equally? It would serve no purpose. There's a reason you didn't get it all. Someone else got the majority of it. So that's why I'm a Bitcoin nobody. It doesn't respect me. It doesn't care about me. But I care about it because it's known. It's a program, it's a computer program just running what it was coded, and it's public knowledge, you know, it's out there for everyone to see. That's why I'm a Bitcoin nobody. Now, as I make more videos, I hope to share about more books I'm reading, the podcasters and YouTubers that I listen to and I watch. And, you know, that list is always growing. And I also want to perhaps interview any of you. So leave me a comment below if you think you're a Bitcoin nobody, and maybe I can interview you and ask you why you think you're a Bitcoin nobody. But I'm into anybody that would like to, that understands, you know, that's kind of one caveat. I would like to interview you if you are, if you understand Bitcoin for what it is, and you can tell me why. You know, and I think that would be very helpful for the rest of the world to see. You know, and I know there's lots of YouTubers, podcasters out there. I want to add my voice to what's going on in the world today. I would like to share what I've learned. And I not only do this on YouTube, I've put on classes here at my local higher education center here in my small town. I've gone into the high school and taught classes. I'm going to go to again. I'm scheduled at work, or soon to be scheduled, I hope, to teach these same principles that I'm talking about right now at my workplace of work. And you know, a lot of my coworkers have already been orange pilled, you know, out there in the oil field. I'll grab them and we'll talk about what's going on today, you know. And for once in my life, I feel like I have something to share, and I feel an importance to that, for that. Why? Because this affects my life, but more importantly, it affects my children's lives. And maybe my grandchildren's lives. This is important. This is changing the world. And the stuff they don't teach in schools. So we got to teach about it online. We got to teach each other and expand this community. So leave a like and subscribe. Leave some comments below. And if you would like to get interviewed, reach out to me. I'm also on Twitter at Bitcoin_nobody. You can also DM me there. Thanks and have a great day.